بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Now in this week's lesson we are going to look at the remaining masails and issues regarding the Eid Salah, and thereafter we are then going to move on to the next section, which is on the next page, regarding a masbook. So someone who comes late for Salah, how would he go about in performing the missed rakats, and also some rulings with regards to a lahiq. And thereafterwards we will then finish off, you could say, the Salah aspect or the Salah topic regarding the Fiqh portion. Now the first section which we are going to look at with regards to the Eid prayers is regarding this issue and mas'ala of hugging and shaking hands on the Eid day. Now I've just mentioned a couple of ahadiths in general regarding the sunnah of shaking hands and hugging. There's two Arabic words, musafaha and mu'anaqa. And you can see the hadiths which can be found respectively in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sunan al-Tirmidhi, where it talks about the companions, the Sahabas, they would shake hands with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I don't want to go into detail here whether you use two hands or one hand. That's like a issue for another day. So basically what we can gather is that it was the sunnah of the companions and the Sahabas that they would shake hands with each other. They would shake hands with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There is also many ahadith which talks about mu'anaqa, i.e. hugging. That's also a sunnah as well, that when you meet someone, in particular if after many days or many weeks or months or even years you've seen someone, then again it's a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that you should hug that particular individual or that particular person. So there's two things here. One is just the sunnah itself of shaking hands and hugging, but then the issue which is in hand at the moment is regarding shaking hands and hugging specifically on Eid day. So there's two things. One is just shaking hands normally, or hugging someone, a brother who you haven't seen for many days or weeks. So that's like a sunnah separately in its own right. But the issue which we need to look at here is, does this sunnah then transfer, or is there more reward or more thawab or more virtues for shaking hands or hugging on Eid day, or on Eid al-Fitr or Eid al-Adha, or on any other special days like 10th of Muharram or 15th of Sha'ban? Does that sunnah transfer its virtues and thawab on that particular day? Now the answer is, in a nutshell, no. Okay, there is no sunnah of actually hugging or shaking hands on the Eid day. There's no kind of like sunnah, there's no practice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahabas that after Eid Salah they would then start hugging each other, they would start shaking hands with each other. There's no sunnah. There's sunnah of like hugging each other or shaking hands for a brother who you haven't seen many days or weeks, as I've just been mentioning. But specifically on Eid day, after the Eid Salah, after the Eid Jamaat, to start then shaking hands or hugging, there's no basis of that. And if you cast your mind back to last week's lesson, where I mentioned this very important usul, that's something which is, usul means principle, yeah? That's something which is sunnah or mustahab. If you remember, I mentioned that if somebody deems it to be necessary, then what does it become? Bidah. It becomes a bidah, very good. Yeah, it becomes a bidah. So similarly, shaking hands in general is sunnah. Hugging someone is sunnah. But if someone then deems it necessary that, no, you have to do it on Eid day, and if not, then there's something missing out of the Eid Salah, he didn't shake my hands, he didn't hug me on Eid day, then to deem it necessary that you have to do these things on Eid day, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, then it becomes a bid'ah, and then it becomes an innovation. Okay? And in particular, when you look at it, these two things, especially in our culture, literally, if you didn't shake someone's hand on Eid day, they'll make a big fuss out of it. That's why, Maulana Sahib, Mufti Sahib, you didn't shake my hands on Eid day, you didn't hug me on Eid day. So they'll make a big fuss. And you could see, because they're making a big fuss out of it, you could see that something in general which is a sunnah, but they think it, or you have to do it on Eid day, then that particular practice becomes a bid'ah and it becomes an innovation. So I mentioned there that however, to insist on the practice of shaking hands and embracing, thinking that it is necessary for the celebration of Eid and is a means of love increasing between the person, is incorrect and is an innovation. Yeah. So you think it or deem it to be necessary on that particular day, then it becomes a bid'ah and then it becomes an innovation. I'll just touch on the next two topics and then inshallah I'll give everyone opportunity to ask questions. The next topic, or the next masla, also very similar as well, Eid Mubarak. Yeah. So again, similar to last week's lesson when I mentioned Jummah Mubarak. So in principle, just to give greetings, and I mentioned that hadith here as well from Fathul Bari, to say Taqabbal Allahu minna wa minka, which means may Allah accept you from us and from you. So to make those kind of du'as or those kind of greetings, then that is something which is established from the Sharia, from the Sahabas. But to actually, again, to use the word Eid Mubarak, and you just need to be a bit careful with the words here, yep? You need to listen carefully to the way I'm explaining. To say Eid Mubarak and then to think, this is the main part, to think that Eid Mubarak is something which has to be said on Eid day, then that is a bid'ah. Now what I mean by that, if somebody just says it out of greetings, Eid Mubarak, without thinking it to be necessary, without thinking it to be, like out of greetings, you're just saying Eid Mubarak, then there's nothing wrong with that. However, if somebody thinks that Eid Mubarak, you have to say it on the Eid day, it's something which is linked with the Eid celebration or the Eid festival, that you need to say Eid Mubarak, then that becomes a wrong, that becomes an innovation, that becomes a bid'ah. Okay? And again, you'll see, again within our culture, that on the Eid day, they won't give salam to anyone. Yeah? You'll see, like, even like you, brothers who you meet or anyone who you meet, when they knock on your door on Eid day, they won't start off with salam. They'll say Eid Mubarak. And they won't actually say the salam. And when you actually ask them, they'll say, oh, I think you have to say it. Don't you have to say it on the Eid day? There was actually a next door neighbor of mine. So on the Eid day, this was a couple of Eids ago, so I just said salam to him. I didn't say Eid Mubarak. I just said salam alaikum. Then he said, oh, Mufti Sahib, you didn't say Eid Mubarak to me and so on. Then I said, well, you don't have to say Eid Mubarak. If you want to actually go according to the hadith, then the Sahabas on that day would say, Taqabbal Allah minna wa minka. They didn't actually say Eid Mubarak. So again, to actually say Eid Mubarak and to think that is something which is connected, then that becomes like a bid'ah innovation. However, if somebody is just saying it out of greetings, he just says Eid Mubarak and so on, then there's nothing wrong with that. And let me just do that then. And then the next topic very quickly is regarding Eid cards. Now, Eid cards, again, you'll find different scholars. Some scholars are quite strict on Eid cards. They say it's it's an innovation, you could say, in Islam as well. But there's also a form of like similarities and tashabbuh and imitation. But other scholars have said that as long as it is something which is simple and not extravagant. Not extravagant meaning that you didn't spend like pounds, 2, 3 pounds, 4 pounds, 5 pounds for the Eid card. Like sometimes with your kids, you could just encourage them instead of them like watching TV all the time. You could say, let's make an Eid card or something. So something like that, and they just give it to their cousin brothers or cousin sisters or to their mums or their dads. Then you shouldn't be that harsh or strict on that. Or even if it's like a Eid card you're giving to, say, a non-Muslim neighbor. Sometimes you may give them Christmas cards or they give you Christmas cards. So in your celebration, you just give them an Eid card. Then there's nothing wrong with that if it's done with the intention of bringing them closer to the Islam. So with regards to Eid cards, again, you'll find some scholars who are quite harsh on this. They'll say strict on this. I know it's haram, it's impermissible, imitation. But if you're asking for my view and so on, but I'll say as long as you're not spending that much money and it's something which is simple and just without putting any Quranic verses inside, if you just write Eid card or something like that, or Eid to someone and so on, then there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so these are the 3 things with regards to Eid. Any questions? Anik, you had a question?
Yeah, what does Eid Mubarak mean?
Blessed Eid. Mubarak means blessed. Eid means Eid.
Well, that's in the text messages like in Mubarak. It's probably saying if you don't get a reply back, then let it go.
You could just say Eid greetings or something, Happy Eid or something, yeah.
Can you put like a hadith or something to encourage non-Muslims or something like that, just to promote?
And the Eid card. The thing is that because most of the time they're going to throw in the bin. That's the problem, and they're going to throw in the Quranic verses. Even if you give it to Muslims, they'll eventually will go into the bin. So it's preferable to refrain from that.
Even if it's interpreted, translated in English.
Yeah, even if you translate a hadith, what you could do, you could write in your own words to the nearest meaning. That would be the best way to go around it, in the nearest meaning. Any other questions or? No? Okay. Okay, now the next masla here, the next issue, the subtitle should have been if Jummah and Eid coincides on the same day, not on the first day, it should be the same day. Now this is a very common issue here, a very common question, which sometimes people ask. And that is, just say for example, Eid coincides with the Jummah. So basically Eid is on a Friday, so you're praying Eid namaz, Eid salah in the morning, and thereafterwards you're praying the Jummah afterwards, yeah? Now, a question which people ask is that if Eid coincides or falls on the same day as a Jummah, do we have to read Jummah prayers, or is the Eid prayer considered sufficient and valid for that particular day? Now, I mentioned underneath what the Imams and the Ulama say. According to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Shafi and Imam Malik. So the three Imams, they say that if Eid coincides on the day of Jummah, on the Friday, you have to pray both Eid Salah and Jummah Salah. Yeah? So you'll have to pray Eid, and then afterwards you will have to pray Jummah. And basically what we say is that the obligation for both are separate. I.e. there are ahadiths regarding Eid, which obviously can be found in the books of hadith regarding the obligation of Eid. And also the obligation regarding Jummah is also separate as well. Allah says, فَاسْعَوْا إِلَىٰ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعَ. So, and when you look at the ahadiths, whether in Sahih al-Bukhari or whether you look in the Quranic verse, the verse which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed, فَاسْعَوْا إِلَىٰ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعَ, which talks about the Jummah prayer, then that order which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given, it's generic, it's general, whether it falls on an Eid day, whether it doesn't fall on an Eid day, it doesn't matter. Allah says, Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu, iza nudiya lis-salah, that when the call of prayer is said, mi yawmil jumu'ah, on the day of Friday, fas'aw ila dhikrillah, hasten towards the remembrance of Allah, wa dharul bay, and give up all your transactions and your bay and so on. So what I'm trying to say is that this is what the Hanafi scholars, Maliki and Shafi scholars have said, that if Eid coincides or falls on a Friday, then you will have to pray the Eid Salah, and you will also have to pray the Jummah Salah as well. Just by praying Eid Salah doesn't mean that it's sufficient for Jummah. Your Jummah has become forgiven or marked for that particular day. No, you have to pray both obligations. You have to pray both Salahs. Okay, everybody happy with that? Now, then I've mentioned at the bottom, however, according to the Hanbali madhab, so according to Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayh, and that's why nowadays, like obviously Salafis, Ahl Hadith, they say that if you just pray Eid Salah on that day, that is sufficient. You don't have to pray Jummah. So if Eid is in the morning, then you pray your Eid Salah, that is sufficient, and you don't have to pray Jummah on that particular day. Okay, so basically you got Hanafis, Maliki, Shafi saying, no, you have to pray both Eid and Jummah, whereas the Hanbali madhab, they say that you have to pray, just praying the Eid is sufficient, and you don't have to pray the Jummah. Okay. Now their evidence, I've just mentioned, this is the evidence they use. It's a hadith which can be found in Sunan ibn Majah, narrated by Sayyiduna Abu Hurairah anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, if we have a look at the hadith, he says, today two Eids have gathered together, Eid and Jummah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that today, it was on a Friday, that two Eids have gathered, two celebrations have gathered. One is the Eid Salah itself, and then the Jummah Salah. Because when you look at Jummah, is also like a celebration as well. It's the same way for Eid, people get together. Similarly, on a Jummah, everybody gets together once a week. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that 2 Eids, 2 celebrations, 2 festivals have gathered today, i.e. the Eid Salah and the Jummah. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then says, whosoever from you wishes, then this Salah, i.e. Eid, will suffice him for Jummah. We will soon gather again if Allah wills. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then said that whosoever wishes, if you want to basically go home, if you want to like go whatever, visit relatives, whatever, then you can, because the Eid Salah which you have prayed, that would be sufficient for the Jummah, and there's no need for you to pray Jummah. Okay, so basically this is the evidence they use. There's also similar hadiths which also can be found in Sahih Muslim, I think, top of my head, but this hadith I mentioned is from Sunan Ibn Majah. So basically what I'm trying to say is that this the hadith they use, the Hanbali madhab, the Ahli Hadith, to show or to prove that Eid or Jummah, if it coincides on the same day, you just pray your Eid and there's no need for you to pray the Jummah. Now the next part, I've just mentioned the Hanafi replies, the Hanafi jawabs, the answers to this particular hadith, or what the Hanafi scholars, and not just Hanafi as well, but other scholars like Maliki, Shafis, other muhaddithin, i.e. experts in the field of hadith, say regarding this particular hadith. Now one reply is that there's actually doubt regarding the authenticity of this hadith. So this hadith I mentioned, Sunan Ibn Majah. There's actually some doubt regarding whether this hadith is authentic or not, or in other words, whether this hadith is sahih or not. Yeah, so there's actually doubt regarding this particular hadith. And the second reply, which I'll just give you an overview of, it's obviously I mentioned a bit more detail in the handouts there, but basically the second reply in a nutshell is that, okay, if we do assume this hadith from Sunan Ibn Majah to be authentic, our reply is that Eid Salah and Jummah Salah, so Jummah Salah, Eid Salah, both, they are 2 prayers. If you remember, I mentioned last week and a couple of weeks ago, is something which is not obligatory on who? Does anybody know who is it not obligatory on? Yeah, travel is good. Who else is it not obligatory on? So travelers is one.
Women.
Sorry?
Women.
Yeah, women good. So women. Anybody? Any other people? Travelers, women. Who else?
Don't live in the city.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, those who don't live in the city. Yeah, not live city. Yeah. So so basically, so these are the 3. There's more, but these are the 3 main. Those who are travelers, Eid isn't obligatory upon them. Those who are women, obviously, Eid and Jummah isn't obligatory upon them. But as I mentioned, if they do come, then they can pray. And those who don't live in the city. Now, basically, what happened was, do you know that year when this particular incident happened, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahabas, they were in Medina Munawwara. And the people who were living outside Medina Munawwara, so you, just say for example, you got Medina Munawwara here. So there were people from outside. Because as you know, in the last part of Islam, what we call many, you call them in Arabic, wafds. Wafd meaning like many groups from various tribes outside Medina Munawwara would come to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and take a bay'ah, pledge of allegiance to believe in God and to abstain from ascribing partners from Allah. You probably may have heard this or read this in the books of Seerah. So just imagine this is Medina Munawwara, and around are these kind of small tribes or settlements where people have converted to Islam. Now, do you know the people who are living outside? So if I do this a bit more bigger, so just imagine this is all Medina Munawwara, and all these like little tribes who are outside of Medina Munawwara, they've converted to Islam. But technically speaking, these people didn't have to pray. Didn't have to pray what? Eid Salah. Yeah? They didn't have to pray Eid Salah. But what they did was that in the morning, they would still come for the Eid Salah. So they would come to Medina Munawwara and they would pray the Eid Salah. Okay? It's like, say, for example, like women, they don't have to pray Eid, but we do see a lot of women still go for Eid Salah. They don't have to, but they still go. Sometimes we see people who are like on who are disabled, they're on a wheelchair. So again, technically speaking, they don't have to come for Jummah. They don't have to come for Eid, but they still want to come for Eid. They still want to come for Jummah. They may not come for the other prayers, but they still want to come for Eid or Jummah, in particular Eid, because it's like twice in a year. So these people who are living outside of Medina Munawwara, Eid isn't obligatory upon them, but they would still, early in the morning, they would still come to Medina Munawwara and pray the Eid. So what happened? They prayed the Eid Salah. Then afterwards, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to them, so this hadith which I mentioned, it's regarding those people. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to them that, look, you guys, you've come from such and such a place far away from Medina. You've come in the morning, so you've come, say, after Fajr. Now, if you stay back all the way until Jummah, it's going to be a very, very long day. And by the time you return home, it's going to be like evening, it's going to be night. And then you won't have, you won't probably spend that much time with your family. So when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that whosoever wishes, your Eid Salah is sufficient for Jummah, it was regarding those people upon whom Jummah wasn't obligatory. They didn't actually have to stay back for Jummah. Does that make sense? They didn't have to stay back for Jummah. They were there for Eid, they came out of their own will. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to them that, look, because you're not living within the city, you're outside the city, Jummah isn't obligatory on you. You've been here since the morning. If you stay back for Jummah, and then by the time you go home, it's going to be very, very late, you might as well go home now and not stay for Jummah. So do you know this this permission Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave, that to those who you don't have to stay back for Jummah? It wasn't a general permission, but it was for those who lived outside the city of Medina Munawwara, upon whom in the very first place Jummah wasn't obligatory. Okay. Any questions regarding this issue or topic?
Jummah composed for them, even though they live outside the city.
No, Jummah isn't obligatory.
Yeah.
But obviously those who were living inside Medina Munawwara, so obviously Jummah was obligatory for them. And that's why actually another narration which I haven't mentioned there, it does say that those who were within the city, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed Jummah with them or led Jummah with them. But those who were outside, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave them the permission to leave before Jummah. Any other questions or no? Okay. Any question? No? No, sure. Okay. The next topic which we're going to look at is regarding. So we kind of finished the Eid section now. So the next two topics which we're going to look at is with regards to the masbook. Masbook is a latecomer, and how would he pray his salah? And secondly, regarding a lahiq. Lahiq we'll look at later. What does lahiq mean? So we'll start off with the masbook part firstly. Now, what is a masbook? Now, masbook basically means a latecomer, yeah? So, and what I mean by latecomer is he's joined the Jamaat or the congregation after the Imam has read one rakat. Okay. If you join the Imam, say, after he's done his takbir al-tahrima, but before he goes into ruku, you manage to get hold of him, then you still consider to be like you found the salah, you found the Jamaat and the congregation. But masbook is someone who joins the salah after the Imam has read one rakat. Okay. Now, this is something which some brothers do get mixed up with, like if I missed one rakat or two rakats or three rakats, how do we actually pray the salah? When we finish, or when the Imam finishes, then and we stand up, how should we pray the remaining two rakats, the remaining three rakats, or remaining four rakats? How do we do the qiraat? Do we read Surah Fatiha, Surah? So this is a very important topic because sometimes people do get mixed up with it. And obviously, remember, if you do get mixed up here, then you still have to do sajda sahwa. I'll explain. Sometimes you may need to do sajda sahwa, which obviously if you didn't do it, then your namaz is not going to be accepted. So that's why it's very important that we learn about the rulings and the masails of this particular section properly. Now, I've just mentioned 5 or 6 rulings regarding the masbook. Now, it mentions here that the masbook will follow the Imam and then complete any rakats that were missed. In the last sitting, the masbook will recite only at-tahiyyat and will not recite any durood sharif. So straightforward. a latecomer comes, say, in the second rakat, so he will just join the imam and he will follow the imam all the way until the end of the salah. Okay. The reason why I mention this is that you will find some hadiths, but no one acts upon it because it was abrogated. But initially, do you know in Islam, initially meaning like when namaz became obligatory, so if somebody came late for salah, the rule was that people, they would make up the rakats which they have missed there and there, whilst the imam, i.e. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would be continuing with the salah. Does that make sense? So basically, just say if a sahabi came, he missed 2 rakats, so Rasulullah sallallahu would be on the 3rd rakat, but that sahabi would basically read the 2 rakats and basically catch up with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the 3rd rakat. So that's why you'll find some hadiths in Abu Dawud in particular that the sahabas would actually do that. But then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam realized that it's not like nice, it doesn't look good. In particular, just say for example, like if you are latecomer and you've come and you're joining the congregation, so you'll have, say, one line of the congregation, they're proper like still, listening to the imam's qira'ah, then the line behind who've come late, they're just like making up their salah. It doesn't like look good, any people doing different actions, it'll confuse people and it doesn't look good as well on the eye. So therefore Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then abrogated that. He said that no, okay, what you do is that you pray with the imam, and then at the end when the imam finishes his salah, he does his salam, then you will then complete the salah. Does that make sense? Otherwise, like in some mosques where what could happen is like only the first line will be behind the imam, and then the next 10 safs probably will be like reading their salah because they've come late or something like that. So obviously it won't look good. So in that situation, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, everybody will pray behind the imam, and then afterwards you will then do qaza, and then you will pray the rakats which you have missed. And I've also mentioned that in the last sitting, so remember last sitting here, when you're with the imam, you just read at-tayyat. There's no need for you to read Durood Sharif. Okay, so just for example, you missed 2 rakats, or even 1 rakat. So do you know the last sitting, the sitting where the imam is going to do salam to the right and the left, you just read at-tayyat. You don't have to read Durood Ibrahim, you just read at-tayyat, you stop at at-tayyat, and then you wait for the imam to give salam, and then you'll stand up and then complete the missed rakats. Any questions regarding this point before?
But you still do what's called the Durood after your last one.
Yeah. You will do that, but just behind the imam. So behind the imam, you just read at-tayyat, and obviously you'll do the tasbih and so on. That's still there. Okay, rule number 2. After the imam completes the salam, that person will now stand up and perform the missed rakats. He will not do the salam with the imam. Straightforward. So as soon as the imam does a second salam, now this is very important. Some people, you see, they stand up after the first salam. The ruling is that you should stand up after the second salam. Now why? Why do you think you should stand up at the second salam? Why can't you just beat the imam to the first salam, stand up or something like that before then?
In case he doesn't sajda sahwa.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, in case he does sajda sahwa. Because obviously, if say for example, because obviously sajda sahwa in the Hanafi fiqh is imam does salam to the right and then he does sajda sahwa. Now, if you were to stand up after the first salam, so the imam could be in sajda sahwa and you're standing up, so you'll then have to get back down again. So that's why you should wait until the imam does his second salam, and then you should stand up and complete the salah. Okay. Any questions regarding that? Or yeah, you see some Ahle Hadith that I never found a hadith or anything, but when they move forward. No, they do after second salam, and then they move forward and then they read their second rakat or however many rakats they missed. Anybody seen that? Or is just in the mosque where I read?
Yeah, go by the wall or something.
Yeah, they go by the wall or they go forward. So just an example, they're in the second saf. So just say they missed 1 rakat. So after the imam, the second salam, they'll stand up and then they'll move forward 1 or 2. So in namaz, they're moving forward 1 or 2 rows, and they'll go, as Abdul Rashid mentioned, near to the wall, and then they'll pray.
They said that I think it's the shaitan that comes in front of him, the sutra is more
the sutra.
It's more closer.
Okay.
Something else.
I think we mentioned sutra before, didn't we? We talked about sutra. Having the barrier.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well anyway, they do that quite a lot. So Never found anything like regarding that in any hadith or anything. Okay, so that's rule number 2 here. Rule number 3. Okay, now regarding recitation. Okay, now in terms of recitation, the masbook he will assume to be in the first rakat. Thus he will recite Sana, Ta'awuz, Auzubillah, Bismillah, Surah Fatiha and a surah. And then if we just look at rule number 4, then I explain together. And in terms of sitting, the rakats performed with the imam will be adjusted to the remainder of the rakats. So for example, if somebody read 1 rakat with the imam and missed 3 rakats, then the first rakat he stands up for will be considered as his second rakat. Okay. Now the best way to explain that is always, if you're masbook, remember that in terms of recitation, it's your first rakat. You're starting from the very beginning. But in terms of sitting, or in terms of action, shall I say, it's like you're continuing with the rakats which you have already read with the imam. Okay? So basically, if you missed 3 rakats with the imam, just say Zohar Salah, you missed 3 rakats, but you read 1 with the imam. So now, do you know when you stand up after the second salam, that rakat which you are going to read is going to be considered your second. In terms of action, it's your second rakat, because you've already read 1. Yeah? But in terms of recitation, it's your first. Okay? So this example, somebody missed 3 rakats. The confusing one is actually on the third one. This is where a lot of people, if somebody missed 3 rakats, that's where people get confused. So this example, you missed 3 rakats of Zohar, Asr and Isha. So you read 1 rakat with the imam. You were sitting down, imam does salam. You then stand up. Now that's rakat which you're going to be reading is rakat number 2 basically. But in terms of recitation, it's the very first. So as you know, at the beginning of every namaz, when you recite, you always start out with Sana, good. Auzubillah, Bismillah, as we looked at before. So you read Sana, Auzubillah, Bismillah, Surah Fatiha, Surah. Then you go into ruku, you do your 2 sajdas. Now what are you going to do after 2 sajdas? Anik, what are you going to do after 2 sajdas?
You get back up, because you act as if it's the first.
No, you won't get back up. No.
What do you mean for the...
No, what are you going to do? Yeah, you'll sit down for tayyat. That's what I said. In terms of action, it's your second. So that rakat which I'm standing up for, in terms of recitation, it's the first. So I'll read like Sana, Auzubillah, Bismillah, Surah Fatiha, Surah. So I've gone down, done ruku, done my sajda. Then after I've done my second sajda, I'll sit down. I won't stand up again. I'll sit down. Yeah, because remember, after every 2 rakats, you need to do a tayyat. You need to sit down. Okay, that's like the rule. Every 2 rakats, you need to sit down. Yeah, whether you read nafal, farz, whatever, it doesn't matter. You need to sit down after every 2 rakats. So what I'll do, I'll now read at-tayyat. And then after at-tayyat, I will now stand up. Okay, now this standing up will be what? My third rakat. Good. But in terms of recitation, it will be my second rakat. So what would I now recite? Yes, Surah Fatiha and Surah. Normally in the third rakat of a first prayer, you just recite Surah Fatiha. If you're praying by yourself, you just recite Surah Fatiha. But because here, in terms of recitation, this is a second rakat, so you will now read Surah Fatiha and a surah. That makes sense? You will now read Surah Fatiha and a surah, and then obviously you do your ruku, sajda, then you stand up again, and then the 4th rakat you'll just read Surah Fatiha, and then you'll finish off your salah. Okay. I'll give you another example. Right, somebody, he's missed 2 rakats of Maghrib. Yeah, so he's missed 2 rakats of Maghrib. So basically, he's there for 1 rakat when you look at it. So he's there for 1 rakat. Imam done salam, assalamu alaikum. So now, just imagine I'm a jahil or someone, I don't know anything. So you guide me. Like Grand Muftis. So you guide me. Anik, so you guide me. So what would I do now?
You read Surah Fatiha. And then
okay, so I'll stand up now. Yes. So what do I do? What would I read firstly?
Surah Fatiha.
Okay, Surah Fatiha. Oh, okay. Yeah. Start from beginning. Sana. Yes, Sana.
Sana.
Okay. Subhanakallahumma.
Subhanaka.
Yeah. Auzubillah, Bismillah. Then what will I do? I'll read Surah Fatiha and. All right, Surah. Okay, so I've done that. Now, what I'm going to do next after I do my sajda, what I'm going to do?
Stay in that.
Yeah, I'll sit down for
Sit down for
at-tayyat, yeah, and then
Stand up.
stand up, and then what I'm going to do? Surah Fatiha and
Surah.
Surah, and then finish off and then. So as you can see, like if you miss 2 rakats for Maghrib, you have to sit down for every of the 2 rakats. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because when a lot of people get mixed up, they think, oh, I missed 2 rakats for Maghrib, so I stand up and then they pray 2 rakats like they prayed there, 2 rakats nafal. Yeah, but no, you have to actually sit down for. So after the first rakat, you sit down for there, then you have to stand up, Surah Fatiha, Surah, and then have you got the gist? Okay. So so that's how you pray. Okay. Obviously, if you miss 2 rakats, then you read that as no. Just say if you miss 2 rakats of Zuhur, Asr, and Isha, so that's straightforward. Stand up, Surah Fatiha, Surah, and then you just do your thingy afterwards, the attayat afterwards. Yeah.
So when you're joining in a late prayer, you don't have to say A'udhu Billah, you don't have to say
No.
You say Allah Akbar.
You just join up. Yeah, very good. Yeah. So remember, when you're joining in a prayer, you don't say Subhanakallahumma. You just say Allahu Akbar, and that's it. Yeah. I think that's the 5th rule which I'm going to mention. But you just read Allahu Akbar, and then you just join the prayer. Any question?
So if you miss the first rakah, do you have to do salah when you stand up?
Salah is like sunnah, so if you didn't do it, then it's, obviously it's not going to affect your namaz. But yeah. Okay, if you have a rule, look at rule number 5. Says if a person joins a congregation when the imam is in ruku, it is compulsory to stand and recite takbir tahrima, and to stand at least for the duration of 1 subhanallah, and then go into ruku. Okay. Okay, does that make sense?
What's takbir tahrim?
Yeah, takbir tahrim means Allahu Akbar. Yeah.
Oh.
Now this is very important as well. Do you know a lot of people, they do this, that just for example, the imam is in ruku. Okay, so they're kind of like, running to join the congregation or the jamaat. So you see sometimes people, what they're doing is, the imams in ruku, they do like this, Allahu Akbar, like that. They're like, they're raising their hands, and in that same motion, they're also like going down as well. So whilst they're like going down into ruku, they're saying Allahu Akbar, and then they join the congregation and jamaat. Okay. Now, basically, what I'm trying to say is that you should do the takbir tahrima in a standing position, Allahu Akbar. And I mentioned that at least for 1 second, once one, like just say 1 second, yeah, you need to be upright and then go into ruku. Does that make sense? So basically, the standing position has to be done for 1 subhanallah. So basically, you say Allahu Akbar, and you need to at least be there for a second and then go into ruku. Okay, you can't go into ruku and do takbir tahrima whilst going to ruku. Your takbir tahrima is not going to be done. And if your takbir tahrima is not done, then as you know, you're not in that namaz, so your namaz is not going to be accepted. And another ruling here, that if the masbook by mistake does salam after the imam's salam, then sajda sahwa will be necessary. Okay, does that make sense? So this is also important as well. So if the masbook, the latecomer, if he does salam to the with the imam, then he will have to do sajda sahwa. Okay. Remember, that is if he does like a full salam, meaning like he does proper. If he, like, for example, just moved his head slightly and then he remembered, and then he got up, then he doesn't have to do sajda sahwa. But obviously, if he did a full salam, then he will have to do sajda sahwa. Okay, so you know,
full salam both ways or just
to the right. But yeah, if it's full salam, yeah, full salam mean like he does it properly. Yeah,
holds there.
Yeah, holds there. Yeah. Then he'll have to do sajda sahwa. Any questions regarding now?
When you come in late and doing your ruku, and you don't make for 1 tasbih.
Yeah, 1 subhanallah, yeah. 1 subhanallah lazim, yeah.
Yeah.
Or 1 subhanallah even.
If you don't make him, they're just they're getting up.
Yeah.
Would that be valid or?
No, if you just, again, it's that same ruling about 1 subhanallah. So if you, like, for example, get into ruku,
yeah,
and he just gets up straight away, and you don't have the time to say 1 subhanallah, just say like you can't be you're not in the ruku position for a second, and then the imam just like stands up for qawma, then yeah, you haven't found that. So basically, you and the imam have to be together in that ruku for 1 second at least. Okay. Even though you couldn't recite anything, but at least for 1 second you have to be there.
You know what the subhanallah thing? What's the minimum amount of times you have to read it?
So it's 3 times in Subhan Rabbil Azim.
That's the minimum. If you read twice, that's
no, there's no, yeah, because the Subhan Rabbil Azim, Subhan Rabbil Azim is sunnah. So even if you didn't read it, it doesn't affect the salah, but you've done something which is against the sunnah of the salani. So it will make your, in particular if you're doing intentionally, it will make your salah somewhat disliked.
You don't even say it at all. would it still be valid?
If you didn't say Subhan Rabbiyal Azim.
Or Subhan Rabbiyal A'la?
Yeah, namaz would be valid,
But, okay.
but against the sunnah, which makes your salah somewhat disliked.
Okay.
Any other questions or? Okay, now the next section which we're going to look at is regarding the lahiq prayer. Yeah? Lahiq. Now, what's the difference? What is a lahiq basically? So I mentioned that lahiq is a muqtadi, so a follower who misses a few or all his rakats after having joined the jamaat. Join the jamaat meaning like, actually if you just add this on, with the imam, like basically from the very beginning, with the imam's takbir tahrim, actually just add that on so you don't get confused. So basically, that's the difference. A masbook is someone who joins after the first rakat. A lahiq is someone who was there with the imam. So when the imam did takbir tahrima, or in the first rakat, he was there, but then he missed some rakats in the middle. Does that make sense? So that's the main difference. Masbook is someone who wasn't there from the very beginning, first rakat, second rakat, whatever, then he joined in the third or fourth rakat. But lahiq is someone who's actually there with the imam. When the imam said Allahu Akbar, or in the first rakat he joined, before the imam went into ruku. But then what happened, he missed some rakats in the middle. Like for example, I've given some example. He falls asleep in his namaz, and thereby misses a few rakats. So to say he started with the imam, yeah, but then he just dozed off for a bit. Remember, dozing off here means like dozing off or sleeping such a way where you're maintaining the sunnah posture. So yeah, so if for example you're standing over, then you proper like collapse to the floor, and you then get your duvet and tuck up into your duvet and so on. Then, and then obviously your namaz will break. Yeah, they're talking about like basically he just like dozes off there. So like he just just move to the right or left but he just dozes off there, or just say in the sitting position he just like dozes off, and the imam's in the third rakat or fourth rakat and so on. So that's like an example of a lahiq. Or just wait a second. Or he's unable to make a ruku or sajda because of a large number of people. Okay, what could happen is, say this Jummah or Eid, where there's sometimes like there's so many people jam packed into a masjid, or just say for example like those who have been for Umrah, Hajj will know that sometimes it gets really really packed, in particular on the 10th of Zul Hijjah, around that time where millions and millions of people are doing tawaf and stuff. So what could happen is that you could actually be right next to, like for example you're reading Salah and there literally could be someone right in front of you, right against your chest. Now obviously you could do your Allahu Akbar, you could say Allahu Akbar, so you're joining the imam, but you can't do your ruku, can you? Or you can't do your sajda. So that's another scenario of a lahiq. Yeah? It's quite important we know this, because this is quite important, because sometimes it could happen, you're in Umrah or Hajj, there's so many people, in particular Hajj. So you've said your Allahu Akbar, and you join the jamaat, you join the imam, but you can't go into ruku, you can't go into sajda. So you're just going to be stuck there. Yes? Because there's someone in front of you, you can't actually do your ruku or sajda. Or like for example, or his wuzu breaks, and while he's gone to make his wudu, he misses a few rakats. Yeah, so he's in salah, and he breaks his wuzu. Now what I mean breaking wuzu, something like, passes wind, or like for example, nosebleed. So what happens, he then just leaves the congregation of the Jamaat, he then goes to the wuzu area. This is one of the situations where facing or having your back away from the Qibla doesn't break your namaz. Because normally, generally speaking, if you turn your face away from the Qibla and have your back towards the Qibla, well not your face, actually your chest away from the Qibla, your namaz breaks. And we read this before, that if you move your face around, your namaz doesn't break, it's makruh. But if you have your chest away from the Qibla, then your namaz breaks. Now, this is one of the scenarios where you could have your chest away from the Qibla, but your namaz doesn't break. So if somebody was in the mosque area here, he broke his wuzu, so obviously he needs to turn his back away from the Qibla, need to come and do the wuzu here. So he does his wuzu, and then he goes back. So what could have happened is that he was there with the imam for the takbir tahrima, for the first rakat, but then say in the second rakat, he broke his wuzu, he now has to go and redo his wuzu, and when he's redoing his wuzu, just say he misses say one rakat or two rakats behind the imam. So all these people are called a lahiq, yeah, who were there with the imam at the beginning, but they missed the middle portion of the salah. Okay, everybody understood lahiq, yeah, the description of a lahiq? Okay, now let's look at the next paragraph. What is the ruling? It is wajib on the lahiq to complete the rakats which he had missed first. After completing them, he should join the Jamaat if it is still in progress. If not, he should just finish the Salah by himself. Does that make sense? So basically, what will he do? So let's say that person who has fallen asleep here. So he's missed 2 rakats. The Imam's on the 4th rakat, he was on his 2nd rakat. Now when he wakes up, what will he do is that he will now continue, he will now basically catch the Imam up. Yeah, so he will then pray the 3rd rakat, 4th rakat, and basically catch the Imam if the Jamaat is still in progress. Yeah. If, say, for example, when he wakes up, he realizes that Imam has finished his Salah, then he will just complete the namaz by himself. Does that make sense? The same with regards to someone who's gone to do wudu. Now when he comes back and he finds that the Imam is in the 4th rakat, so he's missed 2 rakats, so he will just join the congregation and by himself he will catch the Imam up. And obviously if he can catch up with catch the Imam before he finishes the namaz, then obviously his namaz is valid, nothing wrong with it, good. But if the Imam finishes the Salah before he could catch up, then obviously he will just finish by himself. Does that make sense? So basically that is the main difference between a lahiq and a masbuq. A masbuq, he has to make up the rakats after the Imam finishes, but a lahiq will make it up there and there. You know what he has missed, he will make it up there and there. Okay? Yeah.
So would the lahiq then have to do sajda sahwa because he's delayed his namaz?
No, he doesn't have to. He's still considered to be behind the Imam. As long as he doesn't done anything which is breaks his Salah, he's still considered to be behind the Imam, so he doesn't have to do any sajda sahwa. No.
How do you know how many rakats to miss?
Yes, obviously, yeah, it's a good question.
That's what I asked the question.
Yeah, compared to your other questions, yeah. I think you just have to just
that.
work it out somehow. Because obviously, if say for example he missed, he'll just have to work it out somehow. Like if the Imam is reading the rakats quickly, so that he'll probably have to work it out. It's probably the 3rd rakat or 4th rakat, or in that way, you just have to work it out, I think. Yeah. If he's in doubt, he should always go for the least any. Because just for example, if you thought the Imam was on the 3rd rakat, so you caught him up, until rakat 3, and then you realized no, the Imam was in rakat 4, then you could always turn the engine on and then catch him up again. So it's always best to go for the, because obviously if you outpace him, then it's going to be difficult for you to come back. So you should just always go for the least. So if say afterwards you realize that he's actually in front of you, then you could always put the boots on and just accelerate and catch him up. Any other questions or?
And if the lahiq finds himself on his own,
yeah,
he comes back to join the congregation.
Yeah, he'll just pray by himself. Yes,
By
sir.
himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to tap someone to bring him back.
No, just pray by himself.
Just pray by himself.
Yeah. And I'll just mention the last one. I'll give you some questions. Just regarding how does he do the rakats basically? The 2 rakats which he missed when he was doing wuzu or when he fell asleep. How would he do it? So he mentioned the lahiq is regarded as a muqtadi for the rakats which he has missed. Now what I mean by muqtadi, meaning just as a muqtadi does not make qiraat by merely standing there silently, the lahiq will also do the same as well. Does that make sense? So what I mean by that is, do you know that person who's missed the 2 rakats because he went to do wudu, or for example he fell asleep. Now when he remembers, he will, or when he comes back from after performing wuzu, he will just come and then remain silent. He's not going to read anything. Unlike a masbuq who reads sana and auzu billah, bismillah, yeah, he doesn't read anything. He'll just be quiet for the duration of 3 subhanallah, then he's going to go into ruku, sajda, and then he will catch the Imam up or complete his namaz in that particular way.
So you don't say any surahs? You
don't say any. Obviously, you read your tasbih and your at-tayyat, but you'll just catch the Imam up in that way without reading anything. Because as I said before, this lahiq, he's a muqtadi, he's a follower. So the same way the follower doesn't read anything behind the Imam, we mentioned this, you don't read Surah Fatiha, Surah behind the Imam. So he as well, you just be quiet for the duration of 3 subhanallah and you just catch the Imam up in that particular way. Everyone understood that? Sure? Or the Rashid? Explain again. Yeah, so
for example, if you come on the first one and you fall asleep for the 2nd rakah, 3rd rakah.
Yeah, and then he wakes up.
Then you wake up on the 4th rakah.
Yeah.
Then you just stand up on the
Yeah.
After the two at the end.
Yeah.
he's standing.
Like most likely what would have happened is that, just if example, if he fell asleep standing, so he's fell asleep, say, in the first rakat. So the Imam on the fourth rakat, and then he wakes up that he's on the first rakat, yeah. So what will he do is that he will now just be quiet for 3 subhanallahs. He doesn't read anything. He'll go into ruku, do the tasbih, Sami Allahu liman hamida rabbana lakal hamd, go into sajda, do the 2 sajdas, get up for the second rakat again. He'll be quiet for 3 subhanallahs and then ruku, and in that way he will catch the Imam up. Does that make sense? No?
Catch the Imam up for the fourth rakat.
Yeah, the Imam's on the fourth rakat, and so he will
And
catch
then
him up
do
in
the
that
two
way.
Before
Yeah, he will. Yeah, but the main thing is that he doesn't read anything. That's unlike a masbook who reads something. Who reads Surah Fatiha, Surah. The lahik doesn't read anything. Everybody understood that, yeah. That is the main difference between the lahik and the masbook. Masbook reads. Masbook does makes up the rakats which he misses afterwards, and he reads. Lahik makes it up there and there, but he doesn't read anything. Okay.
If he goes to do so, is the condition he can't speak to no one.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. He can't speak.
So can you intentionally become a lahik, intentionally become a masbuk?
No,
Like just break your finger so you
yeah. If he breaks it, then he'll become masbook then anyway.
intentionally breaking.
Yeah, if he does that,
You don't know
which rule?
he doesn't know the rules.
Yeah, the rules.
Yeah, then he can do that. I think a lot of people don't know this rule anyway. If they do break the wuzu, they normally tend to break the namaz and then they start the namaz all over again. So you could do that as well. Yeah, so I've mentioned that yes, so he will have to do the qiraat. The lahik will also do the same. And just as the muqtadi does not make sajda sahwa when he makes any mistake, so is the case with the lahik. Okay, does that make sense? Someone who's a muqtadi who prays behind the imam, in the Hanafi fiqh, he doesn't do sajda sahwa if he makes a mistake. So just an example, the muqtadi, because remember, you're praying behind the imam, innit? Your imam, the namaz of your imam is like your namaz in a way. That's why if the imam makes a mistake, you have to do sajda sahwa. You make a mistake, you don't have to do sajda sahwa, because the imam's namaz is okay. So here as well, this lahik person, if he made a mistake, I don't know, like he didn't read at-tayyat, or he missed at-tayyat or something like that, then you don't have to do sajda sahwa. Does that make sense? You don't have to do sajda sahwa. So that's like another difference between, another similarity, between a lahik and a muqtadi, that if the muqtadi, same way, if he makes a mistake, he misses out something wajib like at-tayyat, he doesn't do sajda sahwa, so the lahik will also not make sajda sahwa for missing out something wajib, yeah? Any questions or...